welcome to the first cast of TotemCast. My name is Duty Heals. It's supposed to be Dude I Heals, but I didn't think about spacing when I made the name, and people call me Duty, so that's who I am. The goals for this podcast, first and foremost, I don't have a script. When I interview somebody, when I talk to you guys, I don't want to sound like a robot. I have a little list on my side that's just general topics, but I'm never going to be reading from a script. So if I fumble, if I, stumble over my own words, just bear with me and we'll move past it very quickly. One of the things too, I don't want to make this podcast, I don't want to get super PC, but I also don't want to be throwing out swears every few minutes. So I'm going to try to not swear. I'm going to try to keep this friendly. I also am going to keep this as calm as possible. If I ever interview somebody and they start talking bad on one person or a group or something like that, you may not see that video because all of these videos are recorded in the past and it's sent to you guys. They are not live streamed. So we'll start off with the goals for this podcast. It is primarily going to talk about level 30 locked XP locked content. Basically, on retail WoW, when your character hits level 30, you lock your XP and you do dungeons, you do raids, you get gear, get enchants, get professions, and then you start raiding and possibly doing PvP, although you're probably going to get absolutely cheesed by a frost mage, let's be honest. I'm going to be covering eventually, I'm going to be covering patch notes. I'm going to be talking about different going-ons in a bracket, and this does not involve, though they are nice enough to let me, this does not involve just Legacy 30. I would love to interview other groups. I would love to talk to people from other communities and get a feel for how this has been going for you. The biggest thing is for level 30 content is that the gear that you get stays for the most part, unless there's some form of I don't know, like a level scale or stat squish. Stat squishes tend to not mess anything up, but level scaling does. We only had one time. 30 back in the day, I think pre-BFA, no, pre-Shadowlands. So before Shadowlands, 30 used to be 80. So if you ever hear me talking about like old 80 or like mop 80s or something, that's why people talk about that. Okay, I covered who I am and what the goals of this is. Let's move on to how I got into World of Warcraft. So I have been playing since about the end of 2007, I believe. 2006. I was born in 96 and I started playing it when I was about 9 years old. So 2005, no, yeah, right towards the end of 2006. I know I believe that's right. The end of vanilla was on the horizon and the Burning Crusade expansion was announced. And my sister went over to a boyfriend's house and he had this game called World of Warcraft. And he asked her if she would ever want to try it because I guess she sat down and she watched him a little bit and he said yeah, or she said yeah, I'll maybe I'll take it home, maybe my brothers are interested in it. So he gave my sister this little 10-day free trial card. And that thing in my entertainment life was one of the most important things to walk through that front door. But my sister brought it home. She said, "Hey, Duty, I have not Duty, but my real name. I have, this thing. Do you want to try it?" And we all said yeah. And then she went and she installed it, set up an account and everything, and made a night elf druid, and logged in, and I couldn't believe it. I don't know. 9 out of 10 people who listen to this are not going to have any idea what this game is. But to give you an idea, I used to play games like Total Annihilation. I used to play games like, um, oh my god, like Battle On and stuff, and nothing open scale like this. And then just out of nowhere, like when she first signed us in, and I saw Teldrassil, how whatever you call it, and I saw all this purple big tree and all these people running around. I'm like, what? Um, and we went and moved around for a little bit, and we didn't even finish the 10-day trial. My I have an older brother, me, and my younger brother, the three of us. Well, all three of us went to my mom and we said, "Hey, can we get this subscription?" And my mom said, sure. Um, we did not grow up a rich family. My dad did construction, and it was enough that my mom could stay home with us, and be a stay-at-home mom. She there were some tough times, but she was able to. She wanted us to be happy, and she got us this World of Warcraft subscription. There, I don't think there was ever a time she couldn't afford it, but there were times we would, scrape together. Like she would go do something for somebody, and then maybe come home and with like I don't know, like $200, and then give us 15 for the subscription. Like she cleaned a house or whatever. Um, my brothers and I had to take 2 hour turns. That's all we were given. And then it was you do your 2 hour turn and then you go outside. And then when your turn eventually came back, you could come on. So you basically went outside for 4 hours in between each turn. But my younger brother had this real bad tendency to wake up at like 6 in the morning and he would jump on. And when it would come to like I don't know, I got up at like 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and I'd get up and I'd say, "Hey, when did you get on?" And he's like, "Oh, I just got up. I just got on. I got my 2 hour turn." And I knew he was lying. So I'd go and I'd tell my mom, I'm like, "Hey, you know, younger brother's not doing, he's not being fair." And then she would go and ask him. He's like, "Oh, I just got up." And all right, give him the two hour turn. So obviously his characters wound up getting much further up in the level towards 60 than I did. Um, I was so young that I didn't I didn't realize that you could do dungeons and stuff like that. I never did dungeons leveling up. In fact, I never really wanted to even do quests. I went from one to I want to argue 1 to 50 with punching things and just whacking things and using spells and just grinding mobs. Um, Once it got to the Burning Crusade, I remember being level 55. I made a, because of that night elf druid I told you about before. My first character was a Tauren druid named Eagle on the realm Anubarak. That character, I was a resto druid, and I didn't know that you healed other people. But I speaking of Eagle, to sidetrack here a little bit, when I first started playing and Mulgore was this huge open area, it blew my mind how open it was. And I went into Bloodhoof Village. I think it's what it's called. It's where you buy like a Kodo and everything. But people in chat were talking, and I asked how much money you're able to get, and people said, "Oh, eventually you can get gold." And I'm like, "Gold? What? There's no way. I'm only at silver." And I asked somebody for gold, and some big Tarn warrior, he was a level, I think he was in his 30s. He walked over and he gave me 1 gold, and he came riding on this mount. I couldn't believe that he was on a mount. He's riding those beasts that are standing right over there. and I all I could think of was wow. Um, but he came up to me and he gave me a one piece of gold, and I felt absolutely rich. I could finally go buy all those spells that I couldn't afford, go buy some, white tier common gear. Um, it was a good time, and I'm very grateful to him for that. Uh, Down the line, I found a guild called United We Stand, and the guild had, I think it was like 300 or 400 people in it, and I met a girl. Thinking back, I well, at least hope it was a girl. Um, and she became my girlfriend on this game, and we would go for walks in Mulgore and all that stupid stuff, and she'd get in a fight with a wolf, and I'm like, I'll save you, and try to be the hero only to die. um, but down the line, she started leveling up faster than me and kind of outpaced me because obviously the 2 hour turns. One day I log in and I get a letter in the mail that she's breaking up with me because she's going out with the guildmaster. And I logged in and they were both online, and I said, "What's going on?" As much as with my horrible spelling as I could have asked them. And what wound up happening was this guy, this guildmaster, bought her epic riding for free with a mount. Um, and I guess fell in love with him for it. But that's just how much she was out leveling me. Like, I was stuck at like 14 or 15, still grinding level like 10, 11 mobs, and she was, up there by like 45, 50s. But he bought her this riding, and I'm sitting there in Bloodhoof Village, and she comes riding with him on this these Kodo that are all armored up and stuff, and all I could think of was, what the heck, dude? I was so heartbroken. Yeah, my first girlfriend ever was in World of Warcraft. I'm not proud of that. And she got bought out. Absolute shill. Um, Going back to the main story though, for talking about sharing turns with my brothers. Um, as I hit level 55 eventually on Eagle. Eagle was again a resto druid. I did not realize you could heal other people, and I thought it was for nothing but self survivability. Now, granted, I never took. I don't think I ever died leveling up because as soon as my health got low, I just rejuvenation and it would be like boom, full health. But the character that I had that tree form, and that to me was such a big deal. So what I wound up doing was I physically in tree form punched things to death from 50 to 60. And that was when Burning Crusade came out. And I hit 60 a couple months into Burning Crusade. I finally started doing dungeons. Um, I think my first dungeon ever was Hellfire Ramparts, and I had no idea how to properly perform. Um, People were dying left and right. The typical you suck as a resto, you suck as a healer, and it's like I, you're stupid, stuff like that. But I wound up sticking to solo leveling, but this time I started doing quests, so I hit 70 fairly quickly. Um, and then I would just go do quests, and I never really bothered with dungeons and stuff. Uh, Eventually, I got enough money to get flight form, and then the bird form was, as I called it, an eagle, so it kind of matched the name, which was nice. Down the line, Wrath of the Lich King eventually came out, and I had finally started doing dungeons. I believe that's when the Dungeon Finder tool came out. So for me personally, and might be a little bit, people might frown on this. I feel like the Dungeon Finder tool for me was such an incredible invention because as a young kid who really didn't know how to do stuff like that, Um, it really helped me get into it. And I started doing dungeons. My character leveled so fast. I also think they redid some of the leveling requirements, like XP wise, for levels in Wrath, so it started, picking up speed. But eventually down the line, I hit level 80, and I eventually switched out from Resto Druid to Boomkin to Balance Druid, and I did like Forge of Souls and stuff and all that. Like on Heroic, I at this point I started having some friends, and we would all play together, and it was a really good time. And I just remember we all went into a 10-man ICC normal, and I absolutely flopped the mechanics so bad. I sat there spamming Moonfire on Marogar, and then I could never. I got kicked out of the group. I have in Wrath of Lich King, I never got past Marogar, and that sucks. But at this point, my older brother, I'll use his name, Cody. Cody started having more friends, more, he started taking up more time on the computer, and he was the older brother. He could get away with it, and we just kind of started backing off. And then Cataclysm came out, and it got to the point that my younger brother would want a turn, and he would just basically say, "Yeah, no, I'm going to stay on." And then eventually, I pushed my little brother off. Um, he basically stopped playing them. I would still fight with him, still try to get a turn in. Um, he started doing this thing that was so horrible. I would get invested into the game, into the universe, and he'd come in and he'd be like, "You got 30 minutes left," and then just like walk out of the room, and it's like, what the hell? Okay. um but down the line, towards the end of Cataclysm, it got to a point that he was like, "Okay, yeah, no, you're off," and Eagle and everything was deleted. I lost all of it, all the people I talked to and everything. And then I wound up making this new account in Miss Pandaria. And that's the one that I have to this day. It sucked to have to restart, but the first thing that I did was I made a crappy rogue, and I got up to um, Siege of Orgrimmar Raid Finder, and I got through it. But I looked at him, and I would watch Cody. He did this really weird thing where he locked his XP at 80, and he played a um, elemental shaman, and he would talk about 409s and all this stuff that at the time I'm like, what the heck? I didn't understand too much of what like a 409 was and all this stuff, but he would go into a battleground like I don't know, an Arathi base, and everyone would be grouped up, and I just remember this chain lightning, and he would spit out lightning from his hand, and it would drop, 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 drop. Like he was absolutely just annihilating people, and it was the funniest crap to watch, man. I was like, oh my god, this guy. I'm playing. My brother's rank one. Obviously, it was because he was abusing 409s and I full 277, 284 from ICC and Ruby Sanctum and all that, but it was still nonetheless so cool to see. He used to do content with all these all these twi- uh all these XP locked characters, man. Like he would do like arena skirms and stuff like that, and I even think back in that time he used to be able to get titles and bloody dancing steel and all that. I think he might have got that earlier in Cataclysm. I don't quite remember, but it's remarkable because eventually Warlords of Draenor came out, and the game changed to his eyes, and he's like, yeah, I'm done. So he wound up dropping that account basically after the fact that he kicked me off, which was cool. Thinking back now, I didn't realize that. That kind of sucks. But I kept playing. I keep playing up until, I still play today. I take periodic breaks. But he those some of those people that he met when I eventually came to this group and people were joining, some of those people that he played with were in Legacy 30. Like they joined after I did. And like eventually I got Cody into the group. He's not in there anymore, but I got him involved, and he used to talk about his old stuff, and he'd see someone's name pop up. He's like, "Oh my god, I know them. I used to play with them." And I'm like, "What? No way." And he'd send me a photo, and it'd be like him on a dwarf and this other dude like smack in the middle of Goldshire on like gladiator mounts, and I'm like, "Oh my god, he did." um but yeah, that's basically my story for how I got into WoW. Uh, how I got into Legacy 30 is a little bit of a different story. So in Warlords of Draenor and primarily Legion, I found a couple people who did what my brother did, and I wanted to do that. So I made Duty Heals my shaman, and I locked his XP at 80. I was at Draenor, and obviously on the Alliance, and I started playing with these guys, and we genuinely did the content. We did heroics, we did raids. There was only like 10 or 12 of us, but we made the most out of it. Like my buddy Squirrel, my buddy Wolf, like we did a lot of content, and it was really really nice. Um, Eventually, fast forward for a while, and Shadowlands came out, and they did the level squish, and a lot of people that I played with just vanished. 80 goes to 30. You go from hitting 5,000s to 500, and a lot of people just dropped out because that sucks. It sucks to see your numbers go down. And yeah, one day, I didn't wind up quitting from that. I wound up sitting outside Orgrimmar on Duty Heals. I think I re-geared him or something. I was just sitting out there watching a bunch of level 20 twinks fight, and I look over, and this troll comes up to me, and I don't mean like a jerk. I'm talking like an actual like hunter troll. And this guy comes up to me, and his name's Metroid, and he's like, "Hey, we do this thing. Do you want to join?" And he was talking about him and a couple friends. They have level 30s, and they try to do like molten core and stuff like that at that level just for fun. And I'm like, do these guys know that this is an actual thing that people used to do? Okay, sure, I'll join. And I jumped in, and the Discord had like maybe 20 people in it at most. And shortly after I joined, a gentleman named Tannen Star joined, and I remember a video of the 9 of us doing Herald of the Titans. And this hunter that I've met, his name is, at the time it was Metroid, but it's Lucario. Um, we've been buddies since the beginning, but he lusted on the RP phase for Herald of the Titans, and we were roasting him about it. And we go to run out, and I actually still have a video of it, but we just get over, some of the people fall down the bridge, the rest of us get absolutely blasted, and we were like, it just erupted into laughs. And at that moment, I knew I found home. I knew I did. And it blew my mind to see that group go from 20 people to 50 to 75. And then the first time we hit 100, and then like 150. And then eventually the guild leader, his name was Rose, is Rose. I still see him around. Um, Rose said, "Do you want to be GM, because I don't really play this?" And I said, "Sure." And I got promoted, and I've never been guild leader of anything. No raid leader, no guild leader, no nothing. And here I was the owner of this new owner of this group, and I'm wow, like this is insane. um, he had this idea to he had this idea to make me it, and everyone else was kind of on board with it. And I said, okay, I'll do this. So we started doing all sorts of um way like recruitment things and blah 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 all that stuff. And we would get together and do raid nights and Herald of the Titans once a month. And over time, our raids would start filling up. A successful group is a group that has to turn people down because you don't have any more spots. And that is such obviously not a good thing to have to turn people away, but to have that be a thing that you have a full group. We would start having 8 people join, then 10, then 15. The largest raid I think we ever had was a 22 or 24 man Sunwell. And I still have a screenshot of it, but that was just seeing all these different color armors and all these people. It's so good, man, so good. And that's how I found Legacy 30. Down the line, I eventually, um, I'll be honest, in my you know in my spare time at work, I'd concoct all these things to do with the group, like all this and that. The dungeon tournament, like I came up with the idea about this dungeon tournament. I brought it up to Lucario, and he's like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And we tried it, and it was a resounding success. It was so good the first go around. I absolutely loved it. If you don't know what the dungeon tournament is, we pick 3 or 4 dungeons to do, and you do them in an order, and you have to get to the end as quickly as possible. Now the rules have changed. They've added like mob counters, kind of like Mythic Plus stuff like that. But before it was you just had to kill every boss and get to the end, and it was so mind blowing. Like you would see people, you know, like trying to panic pull, and then like my group, we pulled too much and it caused us to die. And at that point, you knew it was over because we were 3/4 through a dungeon. Lucario laughed at that because he was spectating us kind of as like a ref to make sure the run was genuine. And he told me, he was like, I was cracking up. um, but I made some choices when I was GM that I'm not proud of. I I was your typical Discord meme moderator where someone would post in the wrong channel and I would immediately jump on and be like, post in this channel. And, I dwelled on that after the fact, and I'm like, dude, I was such a jerk. Granted, it's a stupid Discord server. Okay, whatever. But like, I felt bad about it. And, you know, I always wanted to stay away from PvP as a guild leader because I always thought it was super toxic. Somebody loses to a boss, I gotta play better. Somebody loses to another player, and then it turns into you're this, you're that, you know. Um, it eventually we had a PvP go around, and people were fighting in PvP, and I was at work. I was having a bad day at work, and I got a couple messages, and they were like, "Oh, this is happening. This is happening. This person said this about me." I'm not going to use any names, but instead of handling it like I should have, I jumped on Discord, pinged this person in a general chat, and opened up on them. And a couple of his buddies wound up backing him up, and then like they left, and then he left. I think he left. And it didn't make me feel good. It just was a bad overall look for everything. And I thought, this is my time to step back. This is the end of my rope. I forget off the top of my head what the guy's name is on the lich. Oh my god, my lore right now is so, I'm having such a brain fart. Arthas Menethil's dad. I can't remember his name. I keep wanting to say Tyrion Fordring, but that's not it. You know, when you do ICC, you see that cinematic. He comes over the Lich King and uh, "You, no king rules forever, my son," and it's so true. Nobody stays head dog, if you want to call it that, forever, because eventually you're going to mess up. You're going to do something, or pass on. Not saying I died, but that's kind of where everything happened. And I said, it's time to step back. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I even got burnt out from doing the raids, man. Like, they were fun for a while. They were. But I have 70 runs. And you can armory this on Duty Heals Thrall. Go ahead. But that character has 70 runs on Onyxia trying to get the set bonus trinkets. I have like 20 runs of ICC. All this different stuff, man, that I've done the same dungeons, the same raids all the time, and people were messaging me with complaints about this, about that, and like I'd be at work and I'd get a message and it's like, "Oh, this person called me stupid, but I don't think I'm stupid." And you know, it sucked, man. I will say one of the biggest things I miss from being GM is the bond that I had with people. We had a guy that couldn't come to a raid one night, and he just said, "Hey, I'm not going to be there." And I don't want this to sound sappy, but I genuinely cared about the core people that we had in our raid groups. Every one of them, I genuinely cared about them. I even started knowing about some of them by name. And this guy was saying that he wasn't going to be there. And I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, I just want to make sure, is everything okay?" And he wound up telling me something. I don't remember if his wife was gone or filed for divorce or what it was, but he was in a tight spot. And like I spent raid talking to him, messaging, talking to him. Obviously, I was still giving like raid directions and stuff while we were raiding, but it's like I genuinely cared about all those people. After I dropped the GM role and I went back to an officer, I just kind of felt like I needed to unwind for a while. And so I stepped out for 6 months. And then I came back and everything was open arms. And, everyone was like, "Hey, duty's back." And it felt so nice. The whole reason we named this thing Legacy 30 is to make a legacy, was to make something for us to be remembered. I want it to be that 10 years, 20 years down the line, somebody sees the name Duty Heals. They're like, "Oh, I remember him." Just like my brother did with those guys he PvP'd with in Miss Pandaria. I will never be able to say the name Lucario. I see it in Pokemon, and I'm like, wait, I know that guy. Um, but I've genuinely grown to care a lot about all the people that were core players. Um, the name, oh god, the name for Legacy 30 originally wasn't Legacy 30 when I first joined it, when it was 20 people or whatever. It was actually known as Twink Independence. And I started saying, I'm like, I think at some point, like once I got promoted to GM, I'm like, I don't know if the word twink is going to be considered acceptable by Blizzard, because I always just thought of a twink as a person who locks their XP on World of Warcraft. No, no, not at all. It is something far different. And I thought, oh, well, we need to change it then. And we were shuffling all kind of names around, and eventually I suggested Legacy 30, and I'm glad it stuck. Some of the sayings that we used to say stuck around too. When I took the 6 month break and I came back, and then people like would still say stuff to me. It was really nice. It was nice to one of my sayings, for example. One of my sayings is called "Trust your healer." There are so many times when I'm trying to heal somebody and they get down to like 50% health, they start casting a heal on themselves and their DPS. I just want them to keep doing damage. Let me do my job. It's trust your healer because I'm going to take care of you. If you die, that is 102% on me. So you keep doing damage and I'll do my job. That's why I say trust your healer. And like I joined my first raid again, and it's like here's some people joking and they're like, "Oh, trust your healer," and it's it's so nice to have that stick. Like I'm not a celebrity. I'm not Mr. Fucking. I really didn't want to curse in this. Sorry, won't happen again. I didn't want to be Mr. Famous, but I can at least say, from a realistic standpoint, it felt so nice to be able to come back and you know people are like, "Hey, it's you again." Like that's all I wanted, man. I just wanted to mimic what my brother had for the slightest little bit that I could, and I felt like I did. I think my best moment with Legacy 30 is we were trying so hard to beat 10-man heroic ICC. It's never it's never been done before. And I can say that because we have the dates. The dates don't lie, man. Um Obviously we did it when we were 80, but at 30 with the new level, I don't think anybody cleared it at 30 before we did. And so I went I said, "Guys, here's what we're going to do. If we beat all of 10-man heroic ICC, I'll buy you guys shirts. Everyone in the group will get a shirt. It'll basically be a jersey with the logo on the front and your names on the back." And we pushed so hard. Some of the bosses were face roll. Some of the guys like Putricide were semi tough. Um, and then eventually we got to the Lich King, and we were really trying. People were failing the shadow traps. Necrotic Plague would jump on the wrong person. It's like, oh, he's dead. For whatever reason, I think Necrotic Plague hit what it still hit 80s for. So it was, if you got hit at 30, you're dead. You don't get past the second tick. um, Unless you're a tank. I think it even one-shot tanks. I'm not sure. But we kept trying and it wasn't working. And then I said, okay, I just, let's at least try to just get a kill. So we'll switch him down to 10-man normal. So we beat all of it on heroic and then got him on normal. But it didn't feel good. So we went with a high level and just cleared everything back up to where we were before, up to the Lich King, because we already beat the bosses on 10-man heroic, and then we finally got back to the Lich King. I think it was 68 attempts, and we finally got it. Now, granted, yes, we've had people jump in and critique that, oh, your positioning was wrong and stuff, but that's the fun. The fun of this whole thing is figuring out things for yourself. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But we finally got it. And I just remember everything erupted. It felt like a world first, dude. I could have jumped out my window. I was so happy. And I kept to my promise. And I went to the post office. I kindly and respectfully got the people's addresses that I raided with. All of them trusted me. There was no maliciousness, and I sent all these shirts to them. I don't even have their addresses anymore. I deleted it. But I sent them all these jerseys, and then I reached out to each one. I'm like, "Hey, did you get this? Did you get this? Did you get this?" And they all did. And though the logo changed, and yes, it's known right now as Legacy 30, but it may not be in the future. I still have that shirt. And every time I open my closet and I see that shirt, it's like, man, we worked really hard to get that. A lot of people said that was the pinnacle of what 30 was for them. That raid world first feeling was so intense. I've had things get close to it, like the first time we got Herald of the Titans as a group, but this was something different. Um, I want to jump back quickly before we finish this off. I want to jump back to how I said about figuring things out. One of the things that I have always felt is I never simmed my shaman. I never I never ran like charts or anything like that. Like, yes, I figured out how much percentage one crit gives you and stuff like that, but I didn't find out like, oh, this piece of armor gives me 1.2% more damage or healing or whatever. I went and I just figured it out. And I feel like that's one of the best things about 30. The idea of just figuring things out. Just trying something, seeing how it goes without other people telling you it's crap, it's great, it's whatever, and just seeing how it works for you. I can say this, and it's going to sound really egotistical. I'd argue I'm one of the best healers at 30 because I figured things out myself. I didn't have a sim. I didn't have anything telling me, you need to do this, you need to do that. Part of me wants to tell people when they first join and they're like, hey, what's the best gear? It's part of me wants to tell them, figure it out. That's the fun of the game. You know, that's what makes 30 fun, is finding all these new toys and figuring out what they do. I'm not against people min-maxing. Like, if somebody wants to get simmed, if somebody wants to know, okay, skip the crap, tell me the best way to gear my character. Immediately have you tell them, that's fine. But in my opinion, I would love if people would just be more on the premise of, like, explore, figure it out for yourself. You will love that. So, have some imagination in your mind. That's all I can say. I feel like I covered everything I want to cover today. Again, I swore once. Hopefully next time I don't swear at all. For if anyone wants to interview, just shoot me a message on Discord. I'll be posting that below. You can leave a comment as well. Please do comment if you enjoyed this and you're listening on YouTube. Please like it. You don't have to, but if you don't and you made it to this point, at least thank you for your time. I'm burning already over 43 minutes of your time, and I'm really grateful that, you know, you're giving me an audience. But that's going to be it for me for today. Thank you guys again for everything, for listening to my story. I can't wait to talk to you guys. Hopefully I get some of you on here and, you know, we can shoot the crap. Take care. Be safe. If you're in the US, Thanksgiving's in a few days. Enjoy yourself. Fill up. Have a good time with your family. Take care, guys. Thanks for listening.